Welcome to Cityscope, a podcast where we talk about City of Salina projects, services, and initiatives in depth. And on today's program, we have Lauren Driscoll, who's the Director of Community and Development Services. Lauren, welcome to the program.
Thanks, David. Glad to be here.
One of the things that you've been working on since you've gotten to Salina is housing. Everyone knows that there's a lot of job expansion in Salina recently, and that means that more people are coming to town, and that means that we're going to have adequate housing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So there's been a lot of things that the city has done, most notably the 2016 housing study that kind of is the blueprint for how the city can work to make sure that there's adequate housing. Why don't you give us a little overview of that?
Yeah, so you're right. In 2016, the community took its first kind of big dive into understanding housing. But it really wasn't until 2021 that we found a need to use that information.
Mm-hmm.
We had the existing study, but really, community goes into lockdown, COVID happens, and while all that's happening, we have two major employers in the community announce major expansions. And with those expansions, they identified the number of employees that they would need to fill those jobs for those expansions. And working with the Chamber of Commerce, it was very simple to do the math to realize that we were going to have people coming into the community in order to fill those jobs, in addition to folks that we had here, and we just didn't have enough units for those anticipated new employees.
Mm-hmm.
So we started doing the math and found in order for us to move forward as a community, we were going to need to get fresh data. So we took the 2016 plan, got back together with our consultant who had done that work, and said, hey, we need a quick update and addendum to the existing plan. We had good foundations, but we needed fresh data, fresh statistics to understand the type of product, the price point, the market, and then also to help us understand why we weren't getting these things naturally. Where was the financial gap in those projects? And worked with the consultant. I mean, we were literally in front of the city commission every month for 6 months, and by the end, we're able to adopt an updated plan and an incentive policy, which meant what we found from developers in updating the plan and looking at where success was happening is developers wanted a clearer path. And in order for them to do their pro formas, to invest in a project and understand it was worth their time, needed a clear path to having that conversation with the city commission. So we researched what tools were out there, identified them, looked at how they would impact the community, what resources we had to add to that, and then with each of those, established kind of a gate that you had to get through. Like if you weren't doing a project that did X, we weren't even going to talk about it with you. And then once you were through that gate, incentives usually are about the percentage of maybe a tax rebate or the amount of money, and then the duration of that rebate or the tax incentive. If you, based on a matrix, based on these things that we wanted, you could get more points. And the more points you got, the more advantageous your incentive. So it really kind of put us out front to say, we will support these things. And the more of these things you get, the more we're willing to support them. But here's what we're after.
And I think we should mention that, there's different housing products. I mean, a lot of people just think of housing as single-family homes, but there's duplexes, there's apartments, and those are the kinds of things I think that have been missing in Salina over the past couple of decades.
Oh, for sure. And that was what was so powerful about the housing update, was really understanding that we were missing product in almost every category. So we were missing in the single-family residential side of things, or what we call owner-occupied. We were missing first-time homebuyer product. We were missing workforce housing. We were missing some of that higher-end housing for professional services, doctors, lawyers, stuff like that. We also found that on the rental side, we were definitely missing. We really hadn't had new market rate multifamily that wasn't income or age restricted since the 50s.
Wow.
And, people kind of look around and they're like, what about the Ridges or over at the Meadow? Those were all LIHTC projects that are low-income housing tax credit projects. So again, had those income restrictions. Some of those projects age out over, 20, 30 years, and then they're not restricted anymore, but were not built at market rate, which was a challenge for us because a lot of the housing product that's built for low income or is age restricted, the new employees that were coming for those employers were not going to be able to use that housing product.
Right.
So we had to do something different. And one of the things we also saw in the addendum when we updated the plan, we looked at like literally a financial breakdown of different types of projects and started to understand where the financial gap was and understanding that we weren't getting some of that product because there was a gap and what was our role in filling that. But the crazy thing was, even once you filled that gap in the project, there were other challenges we had. We had to find developers who would build the type of product we were looking for. We learned really quickly, not all developers develop all things.
Right.
And so you had, if you do apartments, you do apartments. You do single-family homes, you do single-family homes. You do duplexes, and sometimes you'll find some that mix, but they found something that works for them, and that's what they do.
Right.
There's also a big difference between the world of builders and developers who do like greenfield development, which is new, usually on kind of what we would consider like a blank slate, right?
Kind of on the edges of town.
Yeah, that the field, the open field,
Right.
where there's no water and sewer yet, you're gonna have to build infrastructure, you're gonna have to really start from the ground up. Versus infill, which is maybe a handful of lots or a large lot in an existing neighborhood that can be redeveloped. And there's definitely probably water and sewer there, but there's also a lot more constraints, right? The egress or the in and out of the lot is already decided, or where the water and sewer is already decided. There's things around you that will determine the height or the width of your project and how you bump up against different other zoning things that are already in place.
Right.
So lots of different challenges, and that's not for every product type, it's not for every builder. And so kind of working through all of that, I do think too what's been interesting about this whole thing is the outside world, outside of Salina, is also struggling with housing. We have a national housing crisis, actually. So here we are, trying to talk to developers all over the Midwest. And, I'm competing with Omaha for units. I'm competing with Wichita and Kansas City. We're competing with Dodge. Like everybody around us, big and small, all need development. And we have a world that's shut down.
Right.
And so even when we were starting to find builders to build units, trying to get supplies for them was a challenge. If you stop making manhole covers, like how long does it take to start making them again and getting them shipped? We had a lot of people retire and leave the job market during COVID that I think hit the trades industries very hard. That was a challenge. There's a lot of things, and even in the last couple of years, beyond kind of the impacts of COVID, we've seen the impacts of the lending market. Banks are equally as much a part of housing development as builders and developers.
Oh, sure, yeah.
I mean, banks are looking at all of these projects just like, when you go to sell your individual home and you're talking to the bank and they're like, well, this is what everything around you is appraised at. Here's how much this house is actually worth. They do the same thing with a large multifamily or owner-occupied subdivision. They look at comps in the community. Well, we
Right.
haven't had one in such a long time. We were very high risk. Banks were like, man, you haven't had apartments like this in Salina for years. We could give you this money and you could go do it someplace else that's already done it. So I think that's another reason that we brought in incentives, is to really kind of break that log jam and for banks to see that we could do this and they were viable projects.
Right.
I think the interest rates that we've seen change in the last 12 months have also greatly affected how our housing production is going. If you have a loan for $1 million and the interest on that loan is 2.5%, it's a lot different than 8%.
Oh, yeah.
And so it just takes those types of shifts to take a project that's right side and put it upside down. So we're also always working with incentives to address some of those things.
Okay, so with that background in mind, there've been a lot of new housing developments that the city has been a partner in. And I think one of the most prominent ones is Magnolia Village, which is the one right by
Yes.
Menards on West Magnolia. And I know the city was instrumental in gaining the $25 million grant from the state of Kansas to help finance that. It's a 500-unit development. How's that going? What's the progress that's been made on that?
Every day there's something new. That will always be a very, very special project. We are the second largest single ARPA allocation in the state. We were beat out by Dodge and their cheese factory. So it is
And the ARPA funds, I should
Yes.
mention, is the kind of like the COVID recovery type
correct,
funds.
yeah. Those are American Rescue Plan dollars. And each state got a certain amount, and how those states distributed those dollars. We were able to work with the legislature and be able to show that this is part of our community's rescue. This is part of the future of Salina and of Kansas, really. And by getting these essential units here, we were able to continue the positive work that we had been doing. I think it's worth noting, though, that really before Magnolia Village, there were a lot of other people who stepped up, both locally and new to the community, to make this happen. I would highlight our first two RHIDs, which is Rural Housing Incentive District. If you're familiar with TIF, which is tax increment financing, in Kansas, we don't do TIF for housing, but we do RHID.
Okay.
So it's kind of the same thing. It's a tax increment capturing. So basically, you capture the taxes that are generated by the new development over a certain amount of time, and the developer gets those back. And so the higher in value those new units are, the faster it can pay itself off. But in general, we know how long it should take to pay off. But that's through property tax. And we had both one with Southview, and we have one on Aeroplanes, which Aeroplanes is off of Centennial, kind of over in that same area as Magnolia Village, and Aeroplanes is off of Ohio. Those two projects also have MIH, moderate income housing. Southview, that is 106 units of owner-occupied and rental. There's a splash of townhomes in there, and the rest are kind of slab-on-grade, owner-occupied homes. Well, some of them can be rented too. But that's a new neighborhood, 106 units.
Right.
And then we also have Aeroplanes, which are townhomes, but I kind of think of them as just shared wall, single-family residential, because they're good-sized houses. They're 2, 3-bedroom homes, but they are connected so there's 2 units connected. And their project is large, 300 units in total. They're working on their first half right now, so it's 150 new townhomes. And I think they're about halfway through their first phase. And Southview's nearly done. So we've got a lot of those homes moving forward. We have 50 townhomes that are kind of more what you'd think, those side-by-side, kind of taller, kind of brownstone-style townhomes off of Brock that were developed.
Just kind of like by Ohio and Albert.
Yes, kind of behind Wendy's.
Right.
And those were done by the Kindlespargers, and we had some incentives on those. We have used like fee waiver on some building permits for projects just to kind of help fill that financial gap and just get things moving. So there was a lot of positive momentum that we were able to go to the state and show the legislature, like we had already done the work. We are the first community in Kansas to actually get on the Department of Commerce's economic development call, where they have investors from all over the nation, curious about Kansas, wanting to know what economic projects are happening. The chamber and the city were on there. We pitched our data, we pitched our community, and it was really kind of a good catalyst for us to getting the conversation started across the country, but definitely in the Midwest, about Salina and about our housing need. It brought a lot of developers and a lot of interest, and then we just built off of that. And that's taking all of that and working with the legislature, working with Commerce, we were able to get the $25 million. And then working through that process to recruit and find through an RFP the right developer for the right project. So yeah, it's 500 units. We've got phase one nearly complete with construction. I mean, I think for the public, once they started seeing them go vertical, it got really interesting. And that's sometimes the hard part is there's a lot that goes on before you actually see the buildings go up related to water and sewer and roads, all those things. So they will probably have the first units getting rented here in the next couple of weeks.
Oh, great.
Yeah, and that project is set, like, as soon as a building is ready, it goes online. As soon as a building is ready, so it's not waiting for the whole thing to be built out and then they'll fill them. So we're filling them
They kind of
as they go.
staggered the construction of those
Yeah.
buildings. Yeah.
Yeah, and you might, for your first few months, have construction workers at the building next door.
Right.
But that gets everybody in units and getting that going further. Clubhouse and pool are under construction and nearly complete. And then phase two is getting ready to start. Over this winter, you'll see the infrastructure start to go in for roads and sewer and water. And then you'll start to see vertical construction for a very different product. It's not like the tall apartment complexes. These are going to be like bungalows, some kind of what they call like a micro mansion product. And they're all very like neighborhood centric. So there's kind of one drive that creates like almost like a spine down the project, and then everything comes off of that. But the units are all front-facing onto an internal sidewalk system. So they're highly landscaped, and you kind of have this neighborhood feeling when you walk in there. It has access to trails, to the clubhouse and pool. It's got, the whole complex has amenities like barbecue and dog park and stuff like that. That'll be very different for us. It also has kind of like these bungalows and cottages that have their own little fenced-in backyards that are kind of right together. Definitely smaller, high density, but a different product. It'll be it's really kind of first of its kind in Kansas. It's pretty exciting. This is,
Yeah, I've seen some of the renderings.
Yeah, yeah.
Kind of cool.
it's pretty cool, and they've really given it a Kansas feeling. They've built a product in several other states. It's been most popular in Florida. And we said, well, you gotta make it look like it belongs here in Kansas. And so the
Right.
aesthetics that they've done on it are great. And then there's 3 more apartments at the bottom of that.
Okay.
So it extends all the way, and Virginia will extend really to the whole bottom of that property.
Okay, all right.
So-
Yeah, and then eventually it'll go down into where Aeroplanes is going to be developed in that second phase. And then that'll be a really cool, like, whole section of housing that's brand new and that's affordable too. I mean, I've seen some of the pricing on these houses, and the incentives have really helped, I
Yeah.
think, with the pricing, with Aeroplanes being about the 200 to 250 range. I don't think that would be possible without those kinds of incentives.
Definitely not possible without the incentives. And, a lot of times people are like, say, well, I could buy this over here, and they didn't have incentives. But you now have specials. So the incentives were to also really keep the product point true, that if you bought a $200,000 or $250,000 house, that's it. You're not paying specials on top of that in order to meet that affordability for that workforce that we're trying to meet. And it also matches our overall demographics. So I think with the variety of product that's in the Magnolia Village project, we have everything from studios to 3 bedrooms. You also start to meet a lot of those needs. We also have in here the incentives secured certain rental rates for certain units for, I believe, 10 years, I think. I have to check the agreement, but it's for a long time. So we'll also see the benefits of some of that for a number of years that kind of make sure that stays workforce housing.
Right, right. Okay, well, it's kind of highly complex here, but
Yeah.
We're working our way through it, and we've had a lot of success, and we've nearly met the goal that was in the housing study, as far as how many units we needed to build by the end of '25.
Yeah, that's a really good point. So it's so crazy that we're at the end of 2025. So when we adopted the revised Lift Salina plan in 2021, 2022, we made sure there was a demand table in there that told us how many units at what price point did we need. And we broke those units up by those units that were owner occupied and those units that were rental. And we needed 1,357 units by the end of 2025. And we are only 202 units away from that. So that's pretty amazing. We went from doing 330 we went from doing 32 new building permits a year to over 300 a year now.
Wow.
And so we've been very, very busy. The joke was we didn't really sleep for the first 2 years between what was coming into the office and talking with developers and just literally marketing the community and marketing the opportunity to bring housing to Salina. So we are very, very close. And it doesn't stop here. The Live Salina plan is a 10-year plan. And so from 2025 to 2030, we then start focusing not just on the infill, or on the greenfield projects. And we started on those, I should say, we started on those because we needed units fast.
Right.
And so you can't always get that kind of higher volume when you do infill. And when we talk about infill, we're looking for kind of like the Brock Court project, where they took a piece of ground that was already in town. It had utilities. It was everything around it was developed, but it was vacant. And we're trying to fill some of those vacant spots. We're also trying to stabilize and reinvigorate our existing housing stock. Like many Kansas communities, and you can read about in the state's housing plan, we have aged housing stock.
Right.
Some days I feel like aged housing stock. But we're looking for programs to help modify that housing. And this last year, we were very successful in taking our first steps into that. We received almost $1 million from Federal Home Loan Bank to do 44 rehab grants in a 11-block area. And then we also secured CDBG, which is Community Development Block Grant money, over $300,000 to help with doing kind of that same work in that area and kind of bringing both those resources together to really take a stab at improving owner-occupied in that area. And then we'll keep pursuing money in those categories, and we'll try rental next time. And we're going to start to work through those other things in established neighborhoods and helping to bring those up. So there's more to come on the housing front. It's not just the big projects. We've got different things that are going to be happening in neighborhoods around the community for the next 5 years at least.
Okay. All right. Well, housing is not the only thing that your department does.
That's true.
And you have a very full plate of things coming up that are going to be very major. Tell me about the comprehensive plan overhaul that you're planning.
Yeah, so the exciting thing that comes with growth is change usually. And typically a community's comprehensive plan will last 10 to 20 years. You may be closer to 10 if you've had something monumental happen that what's in the plan needs to be changed. And sometimes you can do kind of a light update. We've had change, and we're at about 16 years.
Right.
So it's time. We also, our zoning code hasn't been updated since the 70s. It's also time for that to change. So we've been working with the city commission over the last couple of years. They know this is coming. We really look at the investment in the comp plan like you would an asset. Like, we're investing in that and we will use it. It will have an amortized shelf life over the next decade plus.
Right.
So it's really important. The state of Kansas requires that we have a comprehensive plan, and the decisions that we make around land use, that's zoning and everything from variances to annexations, all those things come back to the comprehensive plan.
Right.
And it helps us make decisions for the future of the community. It has things like our future land use map in it, other recommendations about how we grow, where we grow. So getting that reflective of what we want right now. And then once that plan has been revised, renewed, we use that to also help influence the new zoning code. And it's a big process. It'll take us about 3 years. But it also includes a lot of public involvement, making sure that all sectors of the community, everybody has an opportunity to tell us about where they see Salina going. What does that look like for them, and making sure that we've got a future mapped out that's really reflective of us.
Yeah, and just seeing all the changes. I've been in Salina for 27 years now, and all the changes that have happened in that time period have just been enormous. And and I'm sure as we go forward over the next 25 years, the changes are going to be enormous. And so we really need that plan to help guide where things are going to be, where housing is going to be, where office buildings are going to be, where other things are going to be. So it's really a vital part of shaping the future of Salina.
Yeah, we've got to have it, and where we've been, all important and valid, but it's time to take a look towards that future. And it's a subtle thing, but fixing the zoning code is helpful for everyone.
Right.
Just at that age, it's not that there's anything wrong with it, but it's just been pieced together so many different times and amended so many times that we'll also get a new fluidity out of the zoning code, and that will probably make certain decisions easier, and it will have more of a connection to the comp plan, which I think is important. And that's also another investment that, I mean, how many years has it been since we did this the last time?
Right.
I know I wasn't born yet, so like, I think it's an important step, and it's time for us to do it. So
Yeah, yeah.
big things.
Yep.
Big things for a busy community.
Right, yeah. Well, we wish a lot of luck on
Thank you.
on you and your staff to get that done here.
We're lucky. They're hard workers.
Yeah, and you got a good team there, so.
We do.
All right, well, Lauren, thanks very much for being on the program. Really appreciate it.
Great. Thanks for having us. I appreciate it.
And thank you for watching. We'll see you next time on Cityscope.